Welcome to another exciting edition to GroveCityHockey Presents
Hockey in our neck of the woods, and you, sir, were a very talked about person towards the end.
I'm a fifth-year senior, kind of. Well, it's my sixth year of college. Incredible.
Hey guys, we want to say thank you to our sponsor, Cutshield, for bringing you this episode. Make sure you check them out on the link below and use the promo code for 25% off your order. Used by all 32 NHL teams and players, Cutshield is the premier protective player clothing designed by players for players. Their innovative cut-resistant clothing has prevented serious injury to numerous players, including over 30 NHL players. Cutshield gives you the peace of mind to go out and play without worrying about injury. Use our promo code GroveCityHockey, all lowercase and no space, for an additional 25% off your order today. Welcome to GCH Podcast. I'm your host, Ben W. Stock, and with me is a very special guest. I've got none other than Ron Beilsten. How you doing today, Ron?
Doing really well here. A little cold in St. Louis and a lot of snow right now, but we're doing great.
Yeah, I hear you guys are getting hammered. We didn't get hit as hard, but where I work at, we do a lot of shipping, and a lot of the trucks drive through the Missouri area. And quite a few of them were stuck down early this week on Monday and Tuesday. A lot of our stuff that we would ship out just didn't happen.
Yeah, that's the case. We were, easily officially 8.5 inches is what they recorded, but
Wow.
It was 10 inches. 10 to 12 inches was not uncommon, and it all happened in a hurry. So it's been kind of snarled up a bit for us.
Yeah. We got hit with, I want to say like 3.5 inches, but it happened within 45 minutes. So it's one of those ones where when it snows, it hits you, and it hits you hard.
It was laying it down, that's for sure.
Yeah. But I wanted to talk to you and get you on the pod for a little while, because after I talked to your son, we had chatted a little bit about trying to get you on, and he said he thought you might be interested, and I was like, yeah, I would love to be able to tell your story, and so that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna try to tell your story, and why don't you take us back to the very beginning of your hockey journey? What was like your earliest hockey memory? Was it something that like your family was involved in hockey, or was it more involved in skating? Or
earliest was probably I've been around a while, so it was in 68. My dad was in Vietnam, and his good buddy, he was in town. His company had season tickets, and it was one of the first years the Blues were here, and so he started taking me to the games, and man, I just loved the game, and kind of caught on after that. Then progressing, I was probably back then it was 13, 14, I guess, and then going into high school and so forth, our neighborhood guys all got kind of latched onto the game, and we would just play, with street hockey as you would, but a few of us would go to the local roller rink and skate, and there's some guys up there that we were trying to get it going and that, and so we would play. So we would come back home, and half of us had some old beat up roller skates we used on the driveway, and other half of guys ran. So that's kind of how we got it all started. And to this day, fast forward to this day, there's about 3 guys that were from that original group of guys that started, and we're all 65 plus, and we all still play once or twice a week at a rink in town here. So it was really good for a lot of guys at that time. They formed. There was national championships at that time, and I attended my first national championship in let's see, I guess it would have been 1974.
Yep.
And and then attended nationals ever since then, virtually, and played in most of them, but till recently. So that's kind of, I got into it, and then those competitive teams that we formed back in those days, there were events, there was national championships that we could go to, and we would do that. And then there was actually one of the more first formative leagues was called the Great Lakes Roller Hockey League, which consisted of the states and Ontario that all went around the lakes, right? So once a month we would all travel. Our team was out of Illinois at that time. It's right across the river from where we live here. Yeah. And we would get in the car and we would go to London, Ontario. There's a group of guys that had a rink that was a converted bowling alley back in the day. You can imagine the facilities are nothing like we play in today. But and Detroit had a hardcore group of guys that, in Indiana, we played in a little town outside of Indianapolis called Shelbyville. There was a rink. And in Ohio, we played in Van Wert, Ohio. There was another small rink there. I mean, these places were not on your map, but that was the first, probably mid 70s to early 80s. That's what our group did. And we would travel that circuit once a month and play. And, that really the basis for the game that we played and the style we play now was the same. We formed it back then. So how we played then, and we just stuck with it. And then, kind of advanced to where the inline game was, starting to come up. My kids, born in 81 and 83. So shortly thereafter, when they got, to where they could understand what they're talking about, and they say, hey, they're playing ice hockey, of course. And why don't we play some roller hockey? Why don't we bring our ice hockey teams to the roller rink? Well, by that time, we had actually bought it. My family owned a roller rink. At that time, we all went in. We had this rink from 1980 for 25 years. We owned it, and it was not what you'd think. It was not a hockey facility, but we played a lot of roller hockey in it. Anytime there was not a party, a school party, or a public skating session, every open hour was filled with roller hockey. I guess I should, summarize it. Our area has been very, very fortunate in this game. The St. Louis marketplace has been roller hockey forever. And we just nurtured that through there. We would run probably 50 hours a week of roller hockey rentals in the rink around everything else. And the kids got into it. So we started just developing, little junior hockey leagues and things like that, coaching them through there. And then, probably back in the days, there was a national championship that was run by the USARS people, which was, the governing body all through those times. Prior to NARCH doing their first national championship, there was USARS had, quite a few years of events, probably dating back to 68, I think. Okay. And my group of guys, some of them, like I said, played in the mid 70s on. So, and then when NARCH came and played here in St. Louis, the first two NARCH events were in St. Louis at the All-American Sports Mall here. And by then we had actually gotten, people had put up like what were considered real roller hockey rinks, So, and then so that that got us up to to that level. And the kids were all 12, 13, 14. Well, then along came the idea of pro roller hockey with the RHI, throughout that era. Same summer that RHI started, they formed a league called the WRHL that was what we called made for TV league. It was filmed at Disney in Florida for a month, all solid. And they taped games and then they replayed it. I think it was on ESPN. They replayed it in an order that made sense for a season. Right. So it was all teams that were just put together. So I was asked to help put together a team, for the WRHL. And this would actually have been the May before the first season of RHI.
Oh, okay.
so we did that pro thing down there, and I coached a bunch of guys from St. Louis, and that was a one and done deal. And came home, and then a friend of mine knew a couple NHL guys, ex-NHL guys that were wanting to form a team to put into the RHI, and asked if they could come out. My rink was a small 70 by 140 roller skating rink. And we would just play, and these guys really kind of didn't. Perry Turnbull was one of them, and Bernie Federico, the other ones that had our team. And they came out and watched us play a little bit, and said, well, we don't know nothing about 4-on-4 and all that, no lines, and and they watched us, and at the end of it, they just come up and said, hey, I was shocked. I mean, they said, would you want to coach with us? We're going to do this team. I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, so it's the biggest thing ever happened in the sport,
Yeah.
So I jumped on board with that, and was the assistant coach with the whole time we had the Vipers, which was 93 to 99. And we won the championship in 99, and then the league folded. So guess we got to keep the trophy. And
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and so everybody was a little bummed after that deal. It was so interesting, to be involved at that level, and get to coach with NHL guys, and learned a lot from those guys for sure. Bernie is a Hall of Famer in the NHL, and Perry's a great player from his era as well. So we learned a lot, and he actually stayed in the business. He built an inline rink during the Viper era here, and it's still going on today. I was actually at it today. So we've got some quality guys involved in the sport. So did that a couple of years, just, where the kids were just playing, and I was, taking teams, travel teams of, midget bantam age kids in that roller hockey. And we go out west a little bit. And then a guy who was a kid at my rink skating one time was coaching at Lindenwood, and actually they had formed the roller hockey program out there, a couple of them, and he was going to create the ice hockey program, and they got the okay from the school to do that. And one day he just calls me up, and he's like, I'm going to move over to do this ice hockey thing, and we'll need a coach for roller hockey. Do you want to do it? So again, this looks like a good opportunity. So yeah, I'll jump on and do that. And that was the summer of 2003. And so I've been there ever since. So this is our 22nd season.
Yeah, 22nd season, and you've accumulated an incredible record in that Division I scene. I believe you're 537, 32, and 6. With that, so that's it's incredible. Yeah,
we've had we've had some good teams, that's for sure, and it's all, as it's all about the players. We've been lucky to get a lot of good players along through the years, and keep everybody pointing in the right direction, and get them through school mostly, and which is the whole point we're doing it. And so yeah, we've been lucky.
Yeah. So I was listening to the Scotty Bowman audiobook just recently, and one of his first coaching stops outside of Montreal was St. Louis when they did the expansion. So you were able to see some high level hockey right off the rip, because what they did with that expansion was they put the 4 expansion teams in their own separate playoff pool, and then they put the other original 6 in their own bracket, so they would have an expansion team make the finals of the Stanley Cup Finals, so that way it would generate more revenue for those local markets. And it seemed like, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, St. Louis was in the first 4 Stanley Cups for that. Yeah. So that probably had a lot to do with the craze. And I think hockey was pretty big before that too, right?
Well, yeah, there always was, but that definitely was the springboard for the sport, for sure. You're right. They made it to 4. And I mean, got clobbered almost every time by the existing like an original 6 team back then.
Yeah.
But there was a couple series in there where we gave some teams a scare, but yeah, you nailed it. That's all factual. I mean, that's how it went down. And the place was packed from the get-go here. It was a nutso place. The old barn was crazy every single night. And that probably was a lot in the background was a lot to the springboard for like all of us going back into high school when we just threw skates on or played street hockey. It was all relating to the NHL guys.
Yeah.
And it's funny because fast forward to right now, it's my opinion that there is this connectivity between the two sports that is somewhat accepted in some areas, in some regions, and then not so much in other regions. Yep. And our region the roller hockey game is very accepted by the ice hockey, people and vice versa. And I think that's a big reason why we've had the longevity of the sport at a high level here.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that, where it's almost like a niche sport in each region. Detroit has a pretty big following. California has a pretty big following. Arizona's starting to pick up a little bit as well. Colorado also is starting to pick up. And then you're starting to see smaller branches, out of Florida, and New York, New York, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh. All of those guys are starting to pick up a little bit more. Always seemed to be, strong talent. So it's pretty cool to see that. But yeah, there are other sports. So like if you go from the east side on Detroit, you're seeing. You got 3 rinks within 45 minutes of each other, but then you go to the west side and there's nothing. Everything is just closing down, or everybody's just kind of gravitating away from it, and it's kind of sad.
Our sport has a little bit of I think is a unique problem in that area. One is we require a very specific, unique building type to do it. And that building is generally expensive. To get a decent sized free span building they're just not on every street corner. And what you do, and we did it there. JP and I did a project here in town for a few years where we got renovated a place, that was out on the fringe, very far out, but it was really nice when we had it done. We leased it, and then after we got it up and running, it became so valuable to someone else. When our lease ran out, they said, well, you have first rights, but this big company is going to give us twice as much or 3 times as much of your square footage rent. And we were just barely getting by with it.
Right.
But, roller hockey has a cap on what you can charge. I mean, probably all sports that way, but that amount has trouble supporting in the buildings that you need. And that's why all of our buildings seem to go to something else now, whether it be big machine shops, storage places, trucking places. We can go down the line of the places that become more valuable, except for the guys that have owned them from the beginning and nurtured them. And, to your point, a fixture, a mainstay was Joe Dumars in Detroit,
Yep.
I mean, that hosted tons of great events with so many great guys, so many great players and great guys came out of that are still involved in our sport. And the JCC out on the west side. I mean, all of those things are a little unique, and it's amazing that the sport is very, it's very strong right now. But it's very regionalized, and some areas have nothing to do with it, and other areas that have it are big.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's nice to see that those areas, because like I said, for me, the closest rink that I had closed down. It was 45. It was not even. It was a half hour away, and I rep there. I coached there. I rep there. They didn't have any youth leagues because they didn't. They tried to build up the youth, but for whatever reason, it just wasn't blowing up, which is crazy because it was just inside the city of Grand Rapids, or just outside of Grand Rapids. And which is the second largest city in the state of Michigan. You think if you can make roller hockey work, it would definitely be in that city for sure.
You would think it'd be a perfect fit, really.
Right. Especially with the Griffins, in their pipeline with what they've got going. And then you've got, local high school teams that have, that are doing really well at the high school level, playing in Division II, the state finals. Then you got a couple of teams just outside, close to the lakeshore, like Reese Puffer last year. I think they had quite a few sophomores that made it to the state finals that ended up playing DCC, and just got routed, in the semifinals. And the potential is there, but sometimes, I was talking to Billy Zalba, who played against JP back in the day. It was crazy because we were talking about that little tidbit, and I was talking to Billy. I was like, man, what's it got to take to get some roller hockey guys? Just your kids to start playing roller hockey, because it's going to help out your high school team tremendously, because it's going to open up avenues that they might not even have a chance to capitalize on, as versus because what was the average puck time would be like a minute and a half on roller versus 20 seconds on ice.
Yeah, probably right.
So, it's just one of those ones.
I think it all gets back to facilities, and secondarily, and having that one guy or the one group that's just dedicated to doing it. It's just, you just look around and it's just the facilities that are going still. Most of them have a unique operating situation where they've either always been there, and it's a family or a group that keeps it going. No one just off the street comes up and think it's a great business idea to have an inline hockey rink, and that's why the ones that are there, you got to protect them and keep them going as much as possible. And there are a couple places around the country that I've heard of, trying to do places to facilities. And I also think as great as I think the game of hockey is just obviously just exploded, over the past whatever years, totally. But the commitment at the ice hockey level financially now is also, a burden to us a little bit, in that, hey, if you're building pick a number, $50 million building,
right?
Okay. You are going to have to keep that busy all the time.
Yep.
Back in the days when my kids were young, it was very common the ice rink sheets would shut down after the St. Patty's Day weekend events, and we're done. The high school playoffs probably already happened, and that was it. Ice is over. See you guys in September, or maybe August. And that never happens anymore. Hardly. Kalamazoo usually is pretty seasonal. They don't keep their ice up too much, but you get my drift. Is the what you're up against and the financial commitment that these players have, playing club, not like expanded club or whatever they call it in your area, is what used to be junior money, to play. So, and parents get a little tapped out after a while, but the guys that do it, both of them with the same dedication and the same commitment, are no one can argue the fact that both sports help each other out. There's just it's not even close.
Yeah, and it's crazy and I always go back to arguing with those that say ice hockey ruins XYZ or inline will ruin ABC on ice, and I'm just going, not true. It's just not true. The only thing different is the skating, but the strides are the same. The stick handling skills all the same. It's crazy that they think because it takes you 20 extra minutes to figure out your skating stride from one to the next. Is the big hang up.
No, players, and this goes back like I say, years when
Mm-hmm.
all my group of kids were young, their entire team would roll from one event to another. I mean, their parents would be waiting in cars for them to get done at the roller game to get them to the ice game, vice versa, on a weekend where they'd have the St. Patrick's, ice hockey tournament in town. They also had the roller hockey tournament going, 20 minutes away, and they'd be back and forth. And the kids, it is a mechanism, so subconsciously, they know what's on their feet, and it's like they put them on, and there isn't an adjustment. They just go. We're on roller. We're on ice. That's it.
Yep.
The one group that gets the mulligan is the goalies, because goalies, I feel, it's very difficult to go back and forth. Yeah. I think it's very difficult, and the slider systems help them out quite a bit along the way. But it's still, you got to get it. It's just so different for those guys. It's hard for them to jump back and forth.
I would definitely agree with you there, because you got friction. You got one surface doesn't have it, the other one does. And
no doubt about it.
Yeah,
no doubt about it.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about you were one of the first inductees for roller hockey in the St. Louis Amateur Hockey Hall of Fame. Were given that honor in 2014. What was that like?
Yeah, I actually was the first, then we've got quite a few of those guys that played with me, years ago have been added. Some builders, of the rink guys in town that have committed to the sport, and it was very humbling, to be honest with you. I was really, excited about the opportunity, and the committee that formed that, specifically, told me after the fact, there's a reason why this doesn't say St. Louis Amateur Ice Hockey. It says hockey, because they accept, again, back to St. Louis being a little more, they accept the fact that there's a significant roller presence. And that was a great, what a great night, great event, and to be rubbing elbows, with Bill Selman, who coached back in the day when St. Louis University had teams that played against St. Lawrence, and it was high level college hockey.
Yeah.
He was inducted the same year that I was, and just to talk to that guy, was like, wow. A couple NHL guys were put in at the same time that were, St. Louis natives get in. This year coming up in that same event, there's 3 inductees that all have roller background.
Okay, cool.
One of them being Paul Stastny.
Okay. Yeah.
Paul played roller a lot.
Yeah,
a lot. So,
and I think he was a former Colorado Avalanche too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
and a St. Louis Blues.
Yeah, and he played juniors here. Him and JP played on the same team. So
that's awesome. That's too cool. It's pretty cool to have that roller background, and then seeing it being used in the NHL. You're starting to see that. You're seeing it a lot more. And you've seen it throughout the years, but now you're just starting to see a bigger boom of it, because that's kind of how they got their start.
Well, and I kind of laugh, because in our industry, because as you know, I'm a co-owner of tours, and so there's always the bigger organizations, we all know who they are, is like everyone likes to throw these like, oh, this NHL guy was at my event or what, it's cool to say, but there are not many kids yet. Still, there are some that you can say that was a roller guy. Yeah, that's now in the NHL. Yeah, I think it's a big difference to say that's an NHL guy that plays roller. Mm-hmm. Those are 2 different things. I can guarantee you 100% Pat Maroon was a roller hockey guy who made it to the NHL. Yeah, absolutely. He was scooped out of the roller rink, by a guy, a coach that saw something, and that happens. But then you get these other players, we all see them, we all talk about them at our events and stuff. But it's kind of just a different accolade, really. It's like, I think, that's cool that they are great in that side of the sport. and feel it's neat enough to come over and play. It doesn't make them a roller guy, but they are playing roller, and I think that's enough, and we should be happy with that.
Yeah, I think like one comparison I would do would be like Philip Forsberg. He's an NHL guy jumping over to play inline, but then you have guys like Pat Maroon or Bobby Ryan,
Yes.
are roller guys because they played, when they were itty bitty guys, eight on up, and whereas Forsberg, he kind of got into the game a little bit late. Another one I guess you could kind of go with, but now is more converted to roller would be what he played with Detroit a couple years ago. He's with Cutshield, Adam Ernie. That's it.
Oh yeah. There's you go. That's another guy. Yeah,
Yep.
who got into it and just loved the sport of it. And
Yeah,
it's like,
I hear he can't stop talking about it.
yeah. Well, I NHL or whatever league you want to talk about.
Yeah,
You're going to have the puck a lot more in roller hockey than you do in ice hockey. So
yeah,
if you like that, you're gonna like playing it.
yeah, for sure. But then you were also inducted into the Missouri Inline Hockey Hall of Fame as well in 2017. Tell us a little bit about that experience too.
Yeah, it was, which was a couple different things. Is that we had the Missouri one, and the other one that was more of recognizing team events and things like that. And the Missouri was a lot to do with Lindenwood. Was so they connected the dots for that one there. So it just blows me away that someone not calls me out and says we're going to do this thing. So it's like I'm just doing what I really love to do, So, and that's why I still do it.
I think it's incredible. And then, and now we haven't even had a chance to talk about your international experience either, because you were part of Team USA's on the USA roller sports, right?
We did. I was part of a couple things there. I was part of the selection committee for quite a few years. That we did in Colorado Springs, which was, again, what a great opportunity. We go to the Olympic Training Center. That we, there's Derek Power, and it's like all these high level guys are sitting there eating lunch right there by and here we got us bunch of roller guys are just taking it all in, getting to use the facilities and stuff. But that was probably a different and more unique thing, where just on the selection side, not being on the coaching side, the emphasis on that and trying not to make a wrong decision, for a team that's going to be playing at that level, kind of puts it in perspective for you. So we did that for years. Then I out of that I got asked to coach a team of young guys in Detroit that was playing in a tier 2 pro level event as training. So we put this junior team together. Johnny Mosenson was on it. I mean, it was like a hodgepodge of guys from all over the country. We had guys Colorado, a few St. Louis guys, of course, Detroit guys. We just had guys from everywhere throwing this thing together. And we had no realistic idea of where we thought we might finish this thing. And then we won it. And so we won that. And that was kind of but that was actually my only international, if you will, even though it was held in the States, experience at coaching. And I never did get to call, never did get asked to do any international teams, beyond that. So, yeah.
Well, but more so, you were the commissioner, but then you decided and then you were asked to be part of the selection committee. I want to ask you a little bit about how that process was. So it's a room full of you and how many other guys?
Well, we had about, I think the committee was about 5 guys.
Okay.
And they had one of the board members from, at that time, the USARS guy, gave us some guidance and here's the rules and here's some things you gotta, these guys got to dot some I's and cross some T's. And so what was great is out of that committee, we had a couple retired NHL guys, but that were involved in roller. So that was great having things that they see that, you may not see just strictly from the roller side. And I think that as a whole, I can remember the one thing about this, to summarize it, is it was so difficult to pick 12 guys.
I'm sure
out of the allotment of players that were there at that time. Darren Goodwin was there. Darren Goodwin was on the team for a few years, and he was there. See how far back you go. But the group was amazing. And then I did that until JP became 18 and eligible for the team. And then I said, I'm not going to do that. So that's when I bowed out of that role.
Yeah, because I think JP is just a year older than I am, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he's an 81.
Yeah, yep. I'm an 82. So,
yeah.
But yeah, and then JP had an incredible run with Team USA. I know I talked to him about it. I think he has like eight medals of some sort, or something like that.
I really don't. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's funny. I'm bad about that kind of stuff. We'll play a game and we'll get 6-7 goals. I can't remember who got them sometimes. It's like, but yeah, he had a great run. I'm really proud of him. He had a great run at that level, and the sport is in his DNA. I mean, he still competes to this day and plays on teams, when he's not in the ice gig. And I was lucky enough that I did get to go to a couple of those international events, the World Championship in Canada 1 year. That was in London.
Yeah.
And then I went to the World no, it wasn't the World Games. It was the Pan American Games that were in the Dominican. And that might have been the best, more I guess unique roller event I ever attended. The games were played in a basketball court. They didn't have a real ring, so they converted a basketball court over. So it was very small. It had square corners. There was no rounded corners. They were
it's just square.
And it was concrete block wall about waist high, and it had chain link fence about 4 feet above that. And the championship game of that was USA and Canada. And I was like, before it started, I said, there's going to be some body parts left laying out here in this thing. Because there was no bad shots. It was so small. And those guys can all shoot. And you just couldn't get away from each other. It's like 4-on-4 on a basketball court.
That's tiny.
It was the most intense game I think I might have ever seen in my life.
Wow. And that's an incredible memory to have. That's got to bring back some other memories too. What are some of your favorite memories that you've been able to witness as a coach, as a player? I can honestly say one of the ones that I remember was just this past year with the Division I National Championship game between you guys and Grand Canyon University, going into triple overtime. You guys coming in as the undefeated, top seed, and getting taken to triple overtime. You had a phenomenal game. I was literally on the edge of my seat for that whole from the third period all the way on.
There were so many memories about that game. For one of them, your original question to ask, you would think that a lot of the memories would be about wins. It's funny, that one is probably, like you said, is right up there, and it wasn't a win. But it had so many unique things that happened during that game that was a story of its own. Big goal, they jump out front. We score a huge goal of power play to just tie it up at the end of regular. And then here we go back and forth. And for it to go, you would have thought that it would have been one of the boring roller hockey games where somebody's boxing up and that, but it wasn't. It was up and down, end to end. And there were 2 times that myself and John Hilke was coaching with me. their team was either on a 2-man break or they had a 2-on-0, and I was stepping off the bench heading to the door. I just knew this is over. Right. And our goalie played great. Their goalie was sensational. But at the end of it, I said, our goalie takes no back seat to it because he had some unbelievable saves to keep, in critical times. And I mean, we had guys that, that were pushed to the limits more than any team I ever seen. Like, guys were just like out of gas, out of fluids, out of water. I mean, they just, they really were maxed out. We had a couple of guys dinged up. One guy, lost one of his shoulder popped out at the first overtime, and but he finished the game. And it's like there was so many things that we ran out of water twice on the bench. Like, we were going through so much water, that one of our coaches had to leave. He says, I have to go to the restroom. And he just like, well, I forgot what period it was. The buzzer, whistle blows, the door opens up, he comes walking back. It's like so much happened in a game like that. Definitely. And people say this, but I honestly believe it. I said the game is over, and I'm like, I think it was one of the NCRHA guys that I said this really truly was one of those games that was good for the game. This win, lose, whatever. We always want to win, obviously, but hey, guess what? So does the other team. This was really good for, I think, our sport. How that game was so exciting. No one said anything bad about it, except for the restaurant that we lost our reservation because we couldn't get there.
Right. Yeah. No. I will say that I still watch that game on what's the platform? It's on Huddle, I think, or NCRHA TV. Yeah, I still watch it. It's on my Roku stick. I know what the app looks like. So when I'm going to bed late at night, like tonight, I'll probably pop on the game and just fall asleep to it, because that is a game where if you're not a roller hockey fan and you watch that game, you will become a roller hockey fan. Because it, like you said, the story of the back and forth, and it wasn't, like you said, it wasn't boring. It was up and down, up and down, up and down. I mean, the pace and everything like that was just phenomenal.
Yeah, like I said, it was a one of a kind. And there's, of course, being around the program, our program, for as long as I get the questions sometimes, mostly at those events because they're doing the TV things. Like, well, how does this team compare to all your other teams there? It's like, that's so hard, because not one team compared to if they win or not. I mean, every single year in college, you're starting over. I mean, you're cycling 2, 3, 4, whatever guys out of the program, and in come new guys. So your team's new every time, and you try to keep that same synergy going, and you have the same basis to go on. But you can't compare eras. You can't compare guys because everybody did great things. There's, absolutely great players in 2003 and 2004. And, and we had I don't know what the exact numbers are. Here I go with my numbers again, but we had 120 something game winning streak.
109 straight wins from 2000. 2000 was it 2004, 2005 through 2007, 2008. Yeah,
something like that. Because that whole team was inducted in the Lindenwood Hall of Fame.
Okay, cool.
So that team from the 05-06 team is got a plaque at Lindenwood for all the sports, and it's inducted in the Lindenwood Hall of Fame.
That's amazing.
But like I said, a lot of great things. But that game was totally unique. And funny thing is about the journey, so to speak, is for me is I remember more about the guys and about the trips and about the stories of the silly stuff that happens than I do the games and the wins. It's like, it's really is. And I always tell people that with kids now, that their kids are 10 and JP's got little guys, 11 and 12-year-olds, so 13 now. And, I'm like, no one will remember these games who won or lost necessarily. but you are really gonna remember the journey. You're gonna remember the trips. You're gonna remember the silly, stupid stuff, and maybe something remarkable happened, going, coming, whatever. And with the college guys, I mean, they talk about great players. The first team I had at Lindenwood had Greg Thompson on it and Tommy Bruce, both of them from Long Island. And so, I mean, that core group of guys there were great. And it's just been every team after that, there's been a guy, those guys have had a couple, 2, 3, 4 years, run, and then there'd be another guy, and there's an overlap where some guys, there for 2 years, maybe only, whatever. It's just hard to compare, but there's always been a group of guys that you remember more than the games.
Yeah, for sure. I bet if I asked you who broke the streak, you could tell me who broke the streak, because I didn't get a chance to look it up.
Who broke that streak?
Yeah.
I think it was Umsel. I think here in St. Louis, Umsel had a team. Again, they were always great. Very, there's a lot of good players in town, and they were full of St. Louis guys. We always had more of a sprinkling of out of towners, but our core was St. Louis guys, but they were almost 100%. And I believe they probably were the team that broke that, because now that you say it, I really don't know exactly, but I know we lost at Nationals in Feasterville to them. So, and that would have been about 7.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, because that my guess, without looking it up, was Newman, because Newman was getting pretty popular back then. But maybe I'm a little early.
Newman was years after that.
Yeah.
They were quite a few years after that. When they had their group going. Yeah.
But man, and then that also brings me to another question I have is, with Lindenwood playing this year, you guys have only had 3 games so far.
Quirk of the schedule here, because the D1 division with the NCRHA is always a project. Who's playing, who's not, and right now, unfortunately, we lost Bethel out of our region, or out of our conference this past year. They folded their program last summer. As a matter of fact, we were at Tours Nationals in Florida, and somebody came up to the office and said to me, like, "Hey, are you looking for any guys?" They just folded Bethel's program. That's how I found out about it. And
wow.
And they were always great team to play, super competitive in our conference, but right now we don't have another D1 team in our conference. So scheduling gets to be a little bit of an issue. I have thoughts on that. I think that the league needs to look at. We've had a number of years now where there's been anywhere from 6 to 8 teams of D1. You're lucky sometimes. This year the West has, I think, 3 of the D1 teams, so they get that rotation competitiveness. We struggle to find matchups that work for us. Probably, Rowan out east I've seen that they're like 9-0 and been just running over people. So they probably, I think the league needs to think about not having the D1 teams be in the normal template of how the rest of the league works with scheduling and competitiveness, and look at the D1 teams as a separate entity, and maybe say, hey guys, let's pool our funds together, whatever it costs to play in the league and all that, and let's maybe have a couple events. My idea would be to have one West and one East, or one West and one Midwest here, whatever it is, and you just bring the D1 teams in, jamboree style, and you bring all those D1 teams in. You play everybody round robin on those over the weekend, and you're going to end up then with 10-ish, 10 great games, instead of trying to fit teams in bad positions, that don't match up.
Yeah, and then it puts you in a position like what you've already seen so far this year, because your first game this year was 33-1. And you don't want to tell the boys to not play hard, because your job is to coach. You coach from whistle to whistle. You play hard from that start of the puck. As soon as the puck drops, you're going 100%. And how do you pull back the reins on something like that?
Yeah, and and the games that are scheduled are your best form of practice too in developing through the season. So whoever's on the schedule, we don't make the schedule. Whoever's on the schedule, that's what we're playing. We never get we don't do practice games, during the season with ourselves here. So that's why it is. And we always respect everybody, that we play and stuff, and try not to be that guy, in certain games. But sometimes the opponents also, though, don't buy into that, and it doesn't work. And then the boys will be boys, and the guys just go, Right. But it doesn't do us any good to not compete either. I never understand this in our game too. Is everyone talks about the box, right. Playing the box defense. It's like, when you're playing good teams, and we played teams that were on paper, like a couple of Farmingdale teams, Newman in one year in particular, like were probably on paper better than we were, but we would never go into a game boxing it up against those guys like that. Especially when you play in a regular season. I never saw the advantage of playing the box in the regular season, no matter who you are and what it looks like, because you might as well come and play and compete, because it doesn't matter this one loss today. If you're playing a team, like whoever, if you're playing Grand Canyon and it doesn't look good for you, don't change that. If you're a D3 team playing them or a D2 team, go and compete, make yourself better. That one loss to them is not going to hurt you at all. And then, you know what? You keep that in your hip pocket. If you're playing in an elimination game at nationals, and the only way you can beat this team is playing a box, go for it. That's my theory.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, because you're seeing the box system is used a lot in the international style when they're playing Team USA. But when they're not playing Team USA, they go back to the original club style that they play, with their own system. But I think the only team this year that did not play the box against Team USA was Argentina, and they ran with them, but they ended up losing. I think what was it, 9-1 or something like that, or 9-2. But or maybe even been more than that. But I do remember Corey Hodge telling me, he goes, I had so much more respect for the Argentinians because they chose to play against us, whereas everybody else was essentially afraid to play their game against us. They thought that they could try to slow us down by playing the box system.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Now, if those teams that play the box there, it's like, well, why waste it against USA in the round? Go play. And when you meet them in the playoffs, you got to have that win. You do whatever you have to do. Right. Because now you've allowed them to prepare for it. Mm-hmm. If they go and they surprise and maybe they're not as prepared if you surprise them again. But when you do it all the time, then they're ready. We're playing those guys, they're gonna box it up. Let's go. So yeah, it's one of those things where it's just like I know the Team USA guys love when the other teams just come and play their style instead of just trying to box it up, because they think that's what's going to slow us down. So, but no doubt, there's no doubt.
Yeah. So, with that, you have compiled an impressive resume at the Division I. What is the key to recruiting? How do you recruit those out-of-towners? Where do you guys see them? Obviously, you probably see them at tours, Narch, and State Wars. What are some of the things that you look for when recruiting? Because I know you didn't recruit me, but then again, I wasn't in an area that you could pick me up anytime. So
it is a little bit unique in that we some people think that we only go out and try to get the top 10% players, and then let the chips fall. We don't, and people who want to come and be part of the program, and that we try to help you get into school and all that. We've never cut anybody ever. We've always had a place, for you on the teams that we put together. That's why we start 1, 2, 3 teams. Sometimes we even have a 4th team but we try to do it within a what has become like a lot of college limited budget anymore. We just will not cut people. And as far as like how we go after them, we do see a lot of players, and it's a little self-promotional thing that our guys also know guys. And so they'd be like, hey, keep your eye on this guy. This kid is talking like he might want to come. And then we just start the ball rolling with them, and talk to their families and sure through the tournaments, because, we're at all the tours events but it's not uncommon to see me at State Wars and Narch, either one, so we get to see the guys, and really there's the core group of guys are all the same, playing everywhere. So it doesn't matter where you're at. But our players and our alumni, they do quite a bit of recruiting too. An example is Greg Thompson. Greg Thompson is, works with State Wars. And so, if he knows guys, and he'll just say, hey, this guy come up talking to you, I played at Linwood, he'll give us the lead on it. And so we have a lot of parents of kids that were here. It's self-perpetuating, it's that we have this network, I guess, of people who are always, trying to steer guys to at least talk to us. Mm-hmm. And we're a little weird. It's one way too, is like, it's not uncommon for me to say to a guy like, hey, I'll talk to your parent. I want to talk to your parents, talk to you. We'd love to have you. We'd love to have you come. And I'm not going to bother you every week. And I'm not going to text you and email you and call you every week. I want you to know that you let me know the next move, and then we'll tie it all together. And it seems to be a pretty good method, because we've had a lot of kids from pretty far away, come. And there's always, there's a lot of good programs out in California. They have really good core out there, but we get our share of California guys, and I think it's over the years, we always talk about that the culture we have doesn't ever change. We have rules. We have this. The school maintains, you got to do certain things. All of the things that you would like as a parent to be in place have been there and doesn't change. We try not to change anything, regardless if you're the best player, the worst player, or whatever it is. It's like we try to set it up to where it's always the same, so that if you were a player in 2005 and you fast forward in a time machine to 2025, it would feel the same. The names would change and the faces would change, but it would feel the same on how we conduct business, and I feel that parents are comfortable with that culture, like, hey, there people talk about it, but we really, you have to be in school. You have to do this. There's no, you just can't come and slide by, right. And we're graduating, and there's teams that we have played in the past, and there's some teams that their graduation rate wasn't quite up to par, so I'll just leave it at that.
No, and that's it's amazing that you're able to, say, hey, you can come and play here if you want, but you're going to come here, you're going to work hard, you're going to do what you have to do to graduate, or, to earn your degree or certificate or whatever it is that you want to do. But you're not going to just skate by. You're going to put in the work, you're going to put in the effort, and in order to play,
And usually the synergy of that is good, because the kids want to play. They want to do this. So naturally, you're forcing them a little bit, to the education. And we've had kids that struggled mightily out of the box. And like, how is this kid going to resurrect this to stay here? And they have. And then they've been great students by the end. They've graduated. They're out. They're being like, productive, citizens. It's like, and I feel that hockey was the tool that made it happen for them.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Ron, I believe that's going to do it for this episode. We've been talking for well over an hour now.
Wow.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it. It just feels like because it just naturally flows. But no, I just want to take the time to thank you for coming on, chit-chatting with me. And if you would love to come back on, we can always have you come back on.
You just let me know. I appreciate you having me on. It was fun. Great talking to you. Good to meet you. And anytime. Thanks for what you do for the sport.
That's going to do it for this episode of GCH Podcast. I'm your host, Ben W. Stock, alongside Chris Greco. Thanks for tuning in. Please make sure you like and subscribe on all our platforms on YouTube and on Spotify. We'll see you guys on the next episode. Cheers.